Yeah. Thank you.
If at any time I'm speaking too quickly, or I say this politely, I'm using any language that you don't understand, please just stop, and Olga can help us with that. I know sometimes when I start to speak, I can speak quite quickly, so I'll try and slow down. If anyone's like,
Mhm.
oh, hold on, hold on,
Mhm.
please say. So I want you to obviously us to have a good dialogue. So
Thank you.
please do so.
I'll just translate this. У випадку, якщо він говоритиме зашвидко, чи хтось не розумітиме чогось, говоріть, і якби ми будемо перекладати, призупинятись і таке інше. І, тобто, я перекладатиму якусь есенцію відповідей і покладаюсь на те, що ви в цілому в середньому розумієте, що я запитую, так? Правильно?
I'll
Всім
get
ок?
excited. I'll get too excited.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I think that I might start from the end of the list of the questions that I was sending to you. Like, can you please share like how what is the way you're finding new actors? How you're choosing like who to suggest for the projects you're working on, and is it like casting platforms, for example, only, or how important is for you as a casting director and director to know some agencies or actors in person to be able to suggest them for roles, consider them, or
Well, I think the basic answer to that is it's a bit of everything.
mhm,
There are, particularly in this country, Spotlight is still the main place, obviously, to go to find acting talent. And I understand all the reasons why that can be expensive with headshots and then your subscription and everything else. But I think, honestly, if you want to work in Europe, but particularly in the UK, to have a Spotlight profile is probably quite essential because the majority of casting directors, no matter what area they're working in, will refer to Spotlight first and foremost. Now, that doesn't mean that you still can't connect with casting directors and can email them or their office in general. I always say to people as an actor, particularly now, because we have the technology, it's an email and you can send a short, polite email, make a nuisance of yourself in a good way, let people know that you're working every 4, 5, 6 months. Hi, just wanted to let you know I'm doing this play. If you are able to come, that would be great. But I understand that you're busy, would love to work with you in the future. Yours sincerely. That's fine. Because the worst thing that can happen is you don't get any response. And the best thing that can happen is that you send that email on the day where you're a perfect fit for something they're casting. And I've had moments, as I'm sure Olga would tell you, where your project suddenly needs, we want to see 25 people for this role tomorrow. Can you get people on tape like right away? And some days somebody will write to you on the day, in the moment, where they're a perfect fit, and you happen to see it and you go, great, that person looks great, let's just bring them in. So it does happen. So to go back to the question, I think mostly Spotlight and some other platforms. When I was in Los Angeles, I worked in Los Angeles for 7 years. We used Actors Access,
mhm.
breakdown services, sometimes Backstage, but recently Backstage has merged with lots of
Mhm.
other platforms, which I don't really use it, I have to say. Um, but yes, it's the platforms, but also personal relationships with agents who, like every casting director, I do have my go-to agents. Some of them obviously are now friends. Over the years, you get to know them, but I still, have my dozen or so agents who I think that's the agent for this job, that's the agent for that job, because my relationship is such that I know they will send good, credible, accurate suggestions for what I'm casting. So it's a combination of all of those things,
Mhm.
really. But the best thing I think you can still do as an actor is just maintain relationships with casting offices. Don't be like, please see me. Don't sound desperate. Don't beg for anything. But when you're working or you have a new show reel or you've got some new headshots, It's a few lines. Hi, hope you're well. I know you're busy, but I just wanted to let you know I had some new headshots done. I think these reflect how I look currently, and it's really helping me get some great auditions. Would love to meet you some point soon. Yours sincerely. I mean, this is fine. This is fine to send this kind of thing, and that can be to big Hollywood casting offices, or it can be to somebody around the corner in a theatre company or whatever it is. So don't be afraid of being proactive as well.
Mm, thank you very much. I have a question, two questions here. Sorry. In America, you were working with a platform called Casting Networks or Casting Access. How does it call?
Actors Access.
Actors Access.
It's the kind of actors part of breakdown services.
Uh-huh.
So, in the UK, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's a platform called Mandy. It used to be called
Mm.
something else. I think it was Actors
It's
something. I don't
Mandy
know.
and Backstage just bought Mandy, by the way. So
They've all come
Mandy,
together. I think
yeah.
they're all, unfortunately, I think unfortunately, they're all now American owned by
Uh-huh.
these big companies.
I,
Spotlight is
I
now
think,
American.
yeah, even Spotlight is American owned
Everything
now.
American owned.
So,
But there's Mandy, which is for actors to really promote themselves, and then there's Spotlight. In America, there's various platforms, but Breakdown Services, which is the overall name, and
mm,
Actors Access is like the Mandy part of Breakdown Services. So
mm,
actors can promote themselves. You can get access to um, listings of stuff that's being cast. And Breakdown Services, I can tap into that and see who's submitted themselves for certain jobs as an
mm,
individual. So it's
mm.
a variation on
Yeah,
Spotlight.
it's just interesting to explore because I know that at least two people, I'm not sure that they're here, but so I don't know who is that name, so maybe it's one of them. But then there's another girl who's interested in American markets, so I'm just asking it for the record.
If you're in America, to subscribe to Actors Access and Breakdown
Yeah.
Services, it's a bit like it's not as good as Spotlight in my
Mm.
opinion, but it's a similar thing. And really, if you're trying to get started out there,
Mhm.
you should get yourself on it, I think.
Okay, thank you. What about sorry, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we are talking about what we are talking about. Я в когось які, ну, зрозуміло поки що всім все? Так,
Are we
більш-менш.
all so far so good?
I'm just checking
You
if
should explain to them that
clear.
when you and I worked together, you were as bossy and in charge of me as when we worked together. And she's doing the same thing today, but that's fine. That's fine.
Why I'm doing that? I would just,
It's okay.
what?
No, I like it. I like it. It's good. It's good. Keep it moving.
I've just checked if everyone understands.
It's
So
good.
thank you, Andrew, very much. It's very interesting. I wanted
Okay.
to ask, like when you're casting, uh, uh, what is the way when you're going, okay. Can you please tell us a little bit about European castings that you do? Like if when you're going to cast show in your like in Germany, for example, what is the way of casting processes? What is how do you cast actors? Do you look for someone in Germany, or are you just like what is the process there? And is there a chance that like what skills do you need, and do they need to be fluent in German or English, or like from that perspective, like speaking about if some Ukrainian actors who knows German well or English excellently, can they be considered potentially for the work that you do in Europe?
Okay. So I think, was it Nikita who's in Hamburg?
Nikita.
I hope you're having a good time in Hamburg. I was there a month ago because
Mm.
I went to see a show that I'd cast at the English Theatre. So really, my main connection with Germany and European casting really is working for the English theatre. And it's an established theatre. It was started in the 1970s by two American guys who have run it the whole time, Cliff and Bob. They're very sweet, and they've had a lot of success. They went through a period of taking Broadway plays and getting the rights to them so they could do them really for the first time in Europe and so on. But everything is in English, or it's an American English
Okay.
plays.
Mhm.
Um, so my casting, for the most part, has been actors from the UK who then go over to work in the theatre there. That said, since Brexit, the working conditions for British actors just to go and work in Germany has obviously changed quite a lot. So they have used more either English-based or good English speakers based in Hamburg for those roles. But predominantly, I'm casting from outside of Germany for there. Now, that said, having been associated with the theatre for quite a few years, having been over there, it's very nice because I get sometimes invited to other shows. And for example, when I was out just recently, they just opened the Disney Hercules. They did the first tryout of Hercules on stage in Hamburg, in Germany, because Disney has a massive following in Germany and blah, blah, blah. So I went to see Hercules in German. So my German is not great, but I did go to see it and I pretty much understood the story, I think. And it was quite spectacular and quite brilliant. I don't know if you saw it, Nikita, but it was quite a big deal. It was this big production and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at the casting. It was interesting because I would have said it was probably about a third German casting, but a lot of casting from outside of Germany. So there were British actors in it. There were quite a lot of Scandinavian actors. There were Norwegian and Swedish actors in it. And I don't know if it's just because, I mean, the casting was between Disney US and a German casting director, and clearly somebody in Germany who knows that world, that musical theatre world. But again, a lot of it seemed to come from outside. And I don't know if that means, you get a great singer from Sweden who then learns the German just for the show, or whether they're looking for someone who already speaks German quite well. I don't really know. But what I do know is if you're in Germany and you can speak German and you're an actor from outside of Germany, I think there would be interest in what you do and who you are, because Germany's a big country and it's very spread out, isn't it? So I think people live in their own pockets, a bit like the US. There's like LA and there's New York and there's Chicago. People kind of live in that environment. So I would think if you, for example, yourself, Nikita, if you're a good German speaker but you have training skills and credits from outside of Germany, I would think they would like that. I think there's a trend in the casting in Germany to be very interested in people who've had training outside of Germany, but who can speak English well and German well.
So it's also applicable for Sebastian then, like so we are talking about English theater in Hamburg particularly, but generally if
Sebastian's in Germany as well.
Yeah, Sebastian is in Germany as well.
Oh, great! Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I
10
live
years
in
in Berlin.
Forgot to
Berlin.
tell,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think Berlin has obviously got a strong film and television stuff.
Yeah. I have a question here. It just popped out. Like, how do you feel about, like, what is your opinion? How theater show, how useful theater show can be for actor to get onto the TV or films? Because I have my point of view on it, but I want to hear yours, of course.
I think certainly in the UK, and from my experience, which is limited in some areas, but within Europe, I think it's still considered that the training comes from the art of theatre. And most courses, even if you look at them, the traditional courses, because universities, I think, to stay open and take money, now have very specific screen acting or community theatre acting and all these different things. But if you go for the general acting courses, which is what traditionally drama schools and universities across Europe are offering, you train to be a theatre actor first and foremost. And then in your final year, you may do a television project or you may do a film project or whatever. And I think in reality, the path via the theatre into film and television is still the best way. I think actors who can deal with theatre and live experience can adapt to screen and film probably better than actors who have just lived on camera, who then go to the theatre. I think it's a much more difficult transition to do it that way. I think if you look at the careers of a lot of actors, and don't get me wrong, you know, there are people that are born to be on camera, who have that, whatever that charisma, star quality is, to have a fantastic film career. I mean, I always use Tom Cruise as my example. You could argue he's not the best actor in lots of ways, but he does something magical in front of a camera that makes us engage with him. I wouldn't want to see him play Hamlet on stage, right? But I can quite happily sit through, not so much Mission Impossible these days, but you know, some of his earlier, you know, Rain Man and movies like this, and where, you know, where he's been tested. Look at someone like Daniel Day-Lewis. He came from the theatre. A more modern example, I'm using lots of white British examples, try and think of some others for me, but Eddie Redmayne, people like this, you know, Eddie Redmayne went to Lambda and then he spent 2 years at the RSC playing small roles, and then he got small film parts, and now he's become a movie star. And I think people who've come through that system just have something integrally different in them as an actor. I think they are prepared to chance more. They don't give everything away. They don't try to impress. And in a very simple way, I just think they use their bodies and their physicality in a different way. And like I say, to hone that down is easier than to try and pull it out of somebody, I think.
Mhm.
So that would be my opinion.
That's very interesting. Thank you very, very much. I just want just a brief note to the audience, like in case if you have any questions which are like, it could be like absolutely different question, not related to the things that I'm asking, because I assume that I'm asking like some things that might be interesting for each of us, like each of you in a way, but also just feel free to raise your hand and ask.
Yeah, and please challenge and disagree, because I love to know people's opinions as well. And a hand
Nikita.
went up straight away.
Nikita.
Yeah, I just want to ask, does it have a sense to apply for some castings or to send emails, yeah, with hi, I'm Nikita, to casters from UK or New York when I'm based in Hamburg, for example? Does it have a sense?
I think I think interestingly, it's a good question, because I think interestingly, as we all know, more than ever, not everything is shot on the Paramount lot in Hollywood anymore. A lot of stuff is being done in London and the UK. A lot of stuff we know actually in Eastern Europe, you know, for location and stuff like that. I don't know specifically about Germany, how much American stuff is shot in Germany, if anything. But what people are looking for all the time, and I spent a brief time working for Carmen Cuba, who was doing a lot, working with a lot of affiliate offices for European projects, and say there was, that's my telephone. Say there would be a movie that's on location in Germany or shooting in Germany. Um, I'm sure they would be very interested in putting someone like you on tape, if you're appropriate for roles. But because they are looking at people who are based in Europe more and more and more. I think if you were writing with the intention to try and get seen for something.
Andrew.
That was really interesting part.
Yeah, he'll get back. If you will write with intention, it was like.
With the intent.
Sorry.
It's okay to work in Hollywood. If you're writing to a cast director because you want, you know, they want a German-speaking Ukrainian to go on a movie, and it couldn't be more specific, but you know they're going to shoot it in Hollywood and it's going to be 6 weeks, and you don't have working rights. I think early on you need to say, I don't currently have a visa, but I'm working on it, or I'm currently completing my application. I mean, you can sort of use that kind of dialogue if it's true. But if not, one of the first things they will say is, you look great, but can you work here? And what you don't want to do is go through a process to waste their time, in doing that. There was a time when the studios would just be like, we want that guy, let's work out the visa. They just don't do it anymore. They just don't.
Um,
And that's just a reality. If people say to you, if they want you enough, they'll make it work. That don't happen. They will put in somebody with a terrible Ukrainian accent who lives in Los Angeles. That's
yeah,
what
yeah,
they'll
sure.
But you should do it. I mean, maintain those relationships, absolutely. Start those relationships and maybe say, my view is to complete my visa application. Could you keep me in mind? I should be hopefully coming to LA in the future or something like that. That's fine. But just be honest about the situation, I think.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Andrew.
I have 1.5 question here. Half of question is like, how do you think really, like, from all the perspectives, as an actor, casting director, and everything, like from like life experience, do you think these emails, like general emails with like introduction, works somehow, or should it be some, or like or should it be some more than that? Like, you need to aim to meet casting director in person, maybe somehow, or like really, I'm like, obviously you can do that from German to US, but like in a way, obviously being in Germany, I can email like UK casting directors that I'm in Germany. But what if I'm around and I'm emailing casting offices? Do you have any ideas or tips, or how do you feel about these emails? Or you think that people read them and consider actors from this introduction?
So I'm going to do my very quick but very boring story, which I always say when I get this type of question, which is I honestly think it's easier than it's ever been to connect with casting offices, right? Because people say, I can't find the email address. You kind of can. If you look around or you speak to another actor, generally you can find email contacts for even the big casting offices. And like I said, what's the worst thing that'll happen? They don't reply. When I left drama school a very long time ago, there was no email. So every Monday, I used to get my unemployment check. And I'd promise myself I'd write 5 letters. And from that, I'd do a television casting person. I'd do usually more theatre because I wanted to work in the theatre. But I'd send 5 letters. And remember, that was a headshot photo, that was printing a CV, that was typing my letter, that was the postage to go on it, and then I'd go and post them. And invariably, that would just disappear into the universe, and I'd never hear anything. But at the time, very different structure nowadays. But the BBC, probably still our biggest drama maker in the UK, they had one central casting director for all their drama. And I used to write a letter to Jonathan McLeish, his name was, big, fat, sort of jolly BBC casting man. Hi, Jonathan. My name's Andrew. I'm in a play in the middle of nowhere. I would love to be considered for you for one of your TV jobs. Photograph, CV, post. Nothing. Next time, Jonathan, I'm in a play doing something else. Blah, blah, blah. And then I started to get the kind of copy letter. Thank you for your interest in the BBC drama. We will put you on file. And I thought, well, that's better than nothing. Got a reply. And my next one, same thing. Next one, I get the standard reply, but a note scribbled on the bottom from Jonathan. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for keeping in touch. I can't get to see you, but maybe one day soon something may come up. And I was like, amazing. Yeah. And then, of course, I had an agent as well who was also submitting me. So I think it was coming from me and my agent. And then eventually I got called in for one scene in a drama, and I read for it, and I met Jonathan, who was lovely. He looked like Father Christmas. He looked like Santa. He had this big beard. Used to laugh all the time. And I went in, and I read quite badly and was nervous, and I didn't get it. And I thought, oh, that's ended now. That's finished. But what he did was call me in for a role, partly because I had good physical resemblance to an existing character in the show, and they were casting brother and sister. And I went in, I didn't even read. I just chatted to him, the director, and they offered me this role, and it became an ongoing role in a television show, right? So my point being, I've I pursued, right? I pursued it. I persevered. I kept it going. That doesn't happen for everybody. This I understand. Had I not looked like the girl who was already cast in the show, maybe he would have forgotten all about me. But my point being, it's not desperate. You're not trying to say, you should see me because I'm great. You're not saying, why, as a cast director, I'm bothering you every 5 minutes with nothing. I wrote when I was doing a show. I wrote when I had something to say. And eventually he responded, right? And when I got the job, he said to me one day, you did that the right way. A lot of actors don't do it the right way. They bother me all the time, or they phone up all the time. Those days, you'd phone on your landline. And so my point being, it's easier now than it was then. And it's an email. You might want to write something, send a note in the post. I think sometimes if somebody has been, I've had this, which I think is okay. I've had somebody go through a process and they've gone through callbacks and they've nearly got it and they haven't. And over that period, you form a relationship with the actor and you want them to do well and you try to encourage them. And sometimes when I had an office address, I would get a card in the post, just a thank you card, just saying, I didn't get it, but it was just so great to meet you and thank you for your support. And you think that's nice, that's okay. And I do remember the people that do that, I have to say. But do the emails do any good? They might do, is the answer. They might do, or they might not. I know people that have written to Nina Gold when she was casting The Crown. I know people that have written to Gina J when she's doing a movie. They're not expecting to be casting the lead, but they've got enough on their show reel that gets them seen for 2 scenes or gets them seen for 10 lines. But it might be 10 lines with a big movie star, right? And I think as long as you're doing it seriously and you're doing it in good spirit and you're doing it professionally, I think what have you got to lose? That's my honest opinion. I don't know if you agree or disagree, Olga, but
I very much agree. It was such an inspiring story. I'm kind of like, I have goosebumps. Like,
thank you.
oh.
And then I did the TV show and never worked again. No, I'm joking.
No, seriously, it is very cool. It is very cool answer. I'm just like absolutely agree with that. And yeah, I admire the story. Like, cool. Thank you very much. Sasha has a question.
Hi, Sasha.
Hi. I was just wondering, in your opinion, Eastern European actors who already in UK or any other countries, are you suggest for them to start lessons with a coach with accent, to work with a accent? Because, for example, I was talking with a lot of agents also, and they all saying if you have East European accent, you definitely will be considering for role of refugee or just East European, because you don't have this British accent, which they use mostly in theaters, in performances and everything. And I was just wondering, what's your opinion about it? Because I have a coach who work in National Theatre, and when I asked this question, he answered to me that most of the directors are likely to work with people who have an accent because it's easy, but I still don't get it somehow this point. But just in general, it's more opportunities maybe that casting directors or agents will notice you when they will see your self-tape or anything if you have this British accent. So what do you think about it?
I think it's a really good question. And I think, was it Sebastian who said, get cast for villains and bad guys? There are terrible generic casting things in place, particularly in America, by the way. When I was over there, I'd have friends. I have a British Asian friend, a female actor who works in America, and she just goes in for generic non-white roles all the time. Her family originally from India, but she goes in for Eastern Europe, not Eastern, sorry, Middle Eastern roles. She goes in for black roles. She goes, and it's like, who's casting these things? It's like, come on. And I think, unfortunately, accents mean limitations. Now, there's 2 ways to look at that. You embrace what you got, you embrace who you are, and you go, you know what, if it's playing the refugee in this great BBC drama, I'm good for that, because that's going to get me some credit and some visibility and all the rest of it. I think that there is a reality that there is some limitation, I'm sorry to say. But I don't know if changing the accent is the only way to solve that. I think unless you're, you know, Meryl Streep, Sasha, and I'm sure you'll work very hard at it, it is very hard to actually get rid of your accent completely when you're in a room with a British born actor, right? I just think you can hear the difference. So I think what you have to say is, what can I do to utilize that? How do I utilize that? Am I prepared to have a trace of an accent if I can't totally get rid of it? And what casting does that mean for me? Could I still play a German speaking English? Could I play other backgrounds? You know, what was accessible to me? I think to work on it is a really good idea. I think if you've got a reputable coach, they will help you, and I think it's just a really good exercise for yourself, because as actors we want to be versatile and we want to be able to do different things. In a different way, but a similar way, the TV show I just talked about, I was a young actor, I was 23, and I played a very London character. And when I left, if I went to an audition and spoke in a different accent, or I went for a period drama and I spoke a Victorian upper class kind of accent, people were like, "Oh my God, you don't just speak in a London accent." It's like, no, because I'm an actor. That's what I'm doing. But it's even hard for British actors or American actors who are known for one thing to break that mold. So I think accent is very limiting. So I would say embrace what it means to have an accent and really work out what roles are accessible to you if you have an accent, whether they're stereotyped or not. But in the meantime, put in the work and see what you can do. I hope it changes. But I don't know if it will, because predominantly, you know, casting is done out of America or the UK or whatever, where if you're going to speak if you're going to speak English with an English accent, it's got to be really, really good, and it's got to be really spot on. And part of me wants to say to you, why should you do that? Because you could bring all sorts of other things to great roles. But I think the reality is, at the moment, there are limitations. Does that sound really negative? Sorry, I hope.
No, it sounds like it's true.
True.
And I actually agree with this, that you can get your own niche and you can be like the superstar in this niche, like potentially, if you're like, but you know, I imagine. So there's like other questions that I have to you because of this accent conversation. I had a feeling like I wasn't in UK obviously that long, but I've got a feeling, and I'm not that familiar with equity and all of that stuff, but I get a feeling that British casting directors, casting offices are casting like, I'll say an example, like in National Theatre, if someone is having like, I don't know, in a play they have some disability, or they need to have Irish heritage, or like be from specific, like, I don't know, Donegal in Ireland or whatever, they're usually going for people who are they're not hiring actors who are pretending to have this. They're usually going for like real character, like actors who really have this kind of, you know, skills, heritage, whatever. So is this applicable to like all the, is it true that like, for example, if any casting would need Ukrainian, they must, or Eastern European, they most likely will go for Eastern European or Ukrainian rather than hire a British to pretend being Eastern European? Or like, what do you think about that? Because
I think well, you know firsthand, because somewhere like the National Theatre, where, as many of you probably know, Olga worked for over a year at the National Theatre here. I think particularly at this time in 2024, because of people's sensitivities to ethnicity,
yeah.
Acting has meant you sometimes have to just be closer to yourself than ever before. You know, I know an Irish actor who's tall, good looking, has been in so many movies because he's a good looking Irish man. He's like, I don't do Irish parts anymore. I'm like, you do like 2 movies a year because you're Irish. That's like think of that as an okay thing. But I also understand his frustration. I mean, it's the old joke, and I say this in a constructive way, because one of my closest friends is she calls herself a dwarf actor. She has dwarfism, so she's small height. And she always says it's the joke that there's the dwarf saying, I want to get away from dwarf parts. And it's like, well, yes and no. That's like, that's like, there are limitations there, right? And she does get cast in roles where her height has nothing to do with it. But she also has to say, because of my height, I get to play some really interesting fantasy roles in the Lord of the Rings movies she's done and the Star Wars movies she's done. And it's like, if you want to be like, no, you're only casting me because I'm this height, you'll never get that experience. So you have to weigh it up, right? And say there are certain things I know I won't do, and there are certain things I accept because this is an attribute that I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she loves it and hates it in equal measure, right? But I think we all do. I think if you're famous and you're a name that will sell a movie, you will get a chance to do an accent and play something else. I think if you're a supporting role right now, you probably get to be who you are much more than ever before. And I think that's right and wrong in equal measure. Because if I'm casting a play that's set in the Ukraine and it's for Ukrainian roles, I will look for Ukrainian actors, right? I will do that. But if out of nowhere somebody says, oh, I use him again just because he's in my head, Eddie Redmayne wants to play that role, producers are going to go, get him a coach, get him a coach, get him to do a really great Ukrainian accent, and let's put Eddie Redmayne in the role. They're going to do that, right? That's just because this is a world we live in. But I would hope that somebody, if they weren't Ukrainian and they were playing a Ukrainian role, it would be the type of actor that would embrace it and want to be accurate and get it right and share the experience with the other Ukrainian actors that are in that company, right? You get someone who, it's not someone who's just doing it as a breeze. I think if you get a dedicated actor who wants to collaborate with Ukrainian actors to make it as best they can, that's okay. If it's Hollywood style generic, I think we're in a different world.
Mm-hmm.
Going off subject now, but I hope
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I see Sasha a question. I just wanted to say to everyone that we have about 10 minutes left. I have like 2 questions to ask Sasha. Please tell your question, but all the other, please think about what would you like to ask before we will finish, if you have any. So yeah, Sasha, you can go, and then I'll ask the other question about street theater, and yeah.
And we can do another 10 minutes of Q&A if you want to do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
I also want to ask about your experience in the beginning when you started, and what was the moment when you felt really seen, and when it was considered for like your first big role. How was the process, and is it was long process? How was this moment when you felt that you really seen and it was your like first wow?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I don't know if I ever felt that specifically. I mean, I left drama school in 1992, right? So half of you weren't born. And the industry was very different, very different. And my ambition was to be a jobbing actor. And I started working in the UK at a time when we had Conservative government, which we still have, but maybe not for long. And they had been systematically closing regional theatre. So the places that traditionally you would leave drama school, go to a regional theatre, play small parts, stay for a season. You might do stage management as well, get your equity card as you needed to in those days, your union card, and then you'd work your way up. Those jobs were starting to disappear. So I came out of college with an absolute decision that I would write to every existing theatre that was still there before it disappeared. And I was lucky enough that I did get regional theatre work. And I played small parts. I did ASM, assistant stage manager, which I was dreadful as a stage manager, by the way. So I think they realised. They took me out of that quite quickly. And I played small roles, and then that led to another season in another theatre and so on. So I think, to answer your question, Sasha, never had a sort of moment where I thought, I'm it, this is it, this is stuff, because it was very gradual. It was a process. And then I had an agent, but then I started to get smaller television roles, and then I got bigger television. I did children's television. There was a lot of children's television, and I presented children's TV. And then it evolved very slowly. I suppose when I got the job on the soap opera, it was a big soap opera here, which was very big in the 90s. And when I got that job, I suppose that was a changing moment for me, just because people suddenly know who you are and see your work. It's the days when television used to get 16, 17, 18 million viewers per episode, right? So suddenly 1 in 3 people know who you are and your work. So that's a big difference, right? That's a big difference. And it used to sell newspapers, so you'd be in the media and all of that stuff. But to actually feel in myself I'd made it or whatever, I never really had that feeling, because one, I had too much self-doubt, I think, but also you think this won't last forever. They could fire me tomorrow, they could end my contract, and then what's next? And then what's next? So I think you have to be restless. You have to be always thinking, well, where am I going? Unless you become obviously a very established A-lister and you're being offered work all the time. I don't think that kind of eureka moment ever really happens to me, if I'm totally honest.
Right.
But I did get satisfaction knowing I was always trying to promote myself.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
That's okay. That's okay. Where are you in London, by the way?
You mean area?
Yeah.
Horsley, Haringey, around Wood Green.
Okay. Yeah, I know. That's where I went to drama school. Because I went to
really? Which one?
Mountview Academy. And it used to be in Wood Green and Crouch End, and then it moved south to Peckham. But when I was there, I lived in Wood Green when I was a student. So yeah.
I'm studying in London Metropolitan University for a theatre and performance course, if you know, on Holloway Road.
Holloway Road, yeah, of course. So you go down the Piccadilly line to Holloway Road. Great, that's a great university. Great.
Thank you.
I hope you have a good time. Send my love to North London.
Say hi to London from me as well, then. Great. Thank you very much. It's always very exciting and inspiring, and I nearly want to cry, but I still have I'm just feeling very emotional. I remember one question that we have on a course that we haven't discussed that properly yet. What is your opinion? I'm not telling that you had this experience or anything, it's just like opinion, how to get out of episodic roles. Like if you're constantly casted on on episodes in the films. Sorry, it might be very general question, but do you have any thoughts on if you're, or it's a weird question or not. Anyway, if you're always casted on episodic roles and you want to move to bigger roles, is there any thoughts that you have on this? Because one of the actors, for example, I don't know how many years, but year after year after year is constantly casted for not even secondary but episodic, as far as I understood, roles.
I think I know what you're asking. And I think there's two things. It's interesting, when I was in Los Angeles, that friends who are, they call it guest star or whatever they call it when you go into an episode, whereas here they kind of call it a guest. Everybody wants to stop doing those and get a permanent role and do 10 seasons of a hit show. I get that. But I do think, in the same way that I just said, my ambition, and bigger things happen for me, but as an actor, but my ambition was to be a jobbing actor, to go from job to job to job. And I do think, honestly, although it doesn't pay your rent so well, if you are doing a variety of good guest roles, that's very fulfilling. Staying on a show for a long time, although it brings lots of great things, it does become frustrating, because you tend to find yourself doing a lot of the same, and you have to make a peace with yourself about that. I mean, I'd get scripts where, before I even turned the page, I was like, I know what the next line is, because we've kind of done this already. And I didn't complain about it, but you'd be like, oh, can't we do something a bit more exciting? I do think if you are good enough in your guest roles over a period of time, you get noticed. You will get noticed, and you will get at least castings for ongoing characters. I think that just happens. Not for everybody, of course, not for everybody, but I think that does start to happen in the way that I just said. You know, I think in an ideal world, you do theatre and you grow, and then television comes, and it's smaller roles, and then it's bigger roles. I think that does still exist. I think that does still happen. And if you're good in your guest roles and you've done enough, casting people do start to think of you for ongoing stuff.
Thank you. And one last question that I have. So you guys, I don't know, just think if you still have like few minutes to think if you have any questions. One last question that I have is like, we obviously know that there are lots of Ukrainians spread all around like Europe, UK, all of these areas. And we kind of was talking about this a tiny little bit today, but okay, let's say you're English-speaking Ukrainian actor. Do you think there is a chance of like sorry, when you're like, for example, living in Germany, yeah, want to reach UK, or living in Germany want to like establish yourself in I'm just speaking about Germany because Germany and Poland are like, you know, most of Ukrainians are like Germany, Poland-ish. So what would be your advice for just those people who might be like very cool professional actors? They might have like leading roles in Ukraine or like whatever, but now they're like displaced in Europe. Yes, everyone is going through like all these networking advices. I need to find casting office, email something. But is there anything that you might advise to those people? Like imagining, to be honest, like there's unbelievable amount of Ukrainian actors who speak English very well. Like I'm just, you know, getting to know more and more people, and their English is excellent. And now when they're living in the other European countries, they started to pick up like other languages, like Nikita, for example. Like Sebastian is living there for like many, many years, so therefore I'm not telling this as an example, but like Nikita, as far as I know, like moved there 2 years ago, kind of, yeah. And he speaks German pretty well now. So, and there's lots of examples like that. So I just wanted to ask you, what would you just advise to, to all of these actors, you know, yeah, maybe some kind of random advices how to manage their life further, because I think it would be nice and inspiring to hear what you can say.
Well, it's hard for me to say. And first of all, without wanting to sound patronizing, I think it's incredible that so many Ukrainians have had to obviously move from the homeland to other places. And that in itself is very difficult. I know that must be very hard. Then on top of it, we're all foolish enough to work in the arts, which is a hard enough industry anyway. So on top of it, it's potentially leaving a difficult industry at home and then trying to continue in a fairly difficult industry in a foreign land. And I think that can be exciting and fulfilling and thrilling and incredibly daunting as well, and slightly overwhelming, you know. So I admire anyone who's trying to do it to begin with. Not in the same way at all, but my experience of that was when I went to Los Angeles, which, by the way, I only went because my partner got a job in America. And I thought, oh, I must be able to do something in the entertainment world in Los Angeles, even if it's not casting. I must be able to work as a production assistant or something. And it was fairly difficult, even with my CV, resume, and my background. When I was speaking the same language, it was still quite difficult just to appear in another city and be like, hey, I would like to come and work here. And I had a visa and everything, and it was still quite difficult. So things are not easy. Things are not easy. And I think you have to plan, and you have to focus, and you have to have ideas about what you want to pursue, I think, and then try and pursue it. So I think there's a lot of good stuff probably for Ukrainian actors and Eastern European actors. I think there is opportunity. But really, like we were saying with Sasha in the accent question, it's knowing possibly what will come your way and being okay with that. And then thinking, what would be my ideal? Maybe there's a plan I can have. Maybe I'll try and focus on, you know, I might have been a leading actor in the theatre in the Ukraine, but even if I get a small role in a Shakespeare production or something, will my accent matter? Probably won't, actually. You know, maybe that's something I could go after. I don't know. I'm being very generic, but I think opportunity is there, and we can also make our own opportunity as well. I think that put yourself out there, write those emails, connect with people, and say, "I'm here. This is it." Nobody wants a sympathy vote, but I think people are sensitive to the fact that a lot of Ukrainian actors are now not in the Ukraine. And why shouldn't they be given an opportunity? And I think a lot of casting offices and writers and producers want to help and include Ukrainian roles and actors in the things that they're doing. So hopefully at some level there is a positivity around what's happened as well. And I hope that would grow and that would continue to grow. So I'm not in your shoes, but I hope that people from my side will be supportive and would help and just keep connecting with them to see if that's the way it will be, I would say.
Thank you very much. Sebastian, just
I have a very personal and very specific question, which might be not interesting for the others, but I have to ask. Um, I had a role in London. It was a diploma film for the NTFS, and I had a banger of time. It was everything was very, very great, but at the end, I got in sort of, I don't know if you can call it a conflict. Was like a very silent conflict with producer, because he told me I have to write an invoice. So and I've never done that with acting jobs, and I don't even I don't even know how to do that, and to like remember all the days of shooting and stuff like that. It was very confusing for me. And he said that this is how we do it in the UK. So, and I don't quite believe him. Is it true that like as an actor you write invoices
Yeah,
in the UK?
as
Really?
and in the US, unless you're put onto a production payroll, you know, unless they set up a payroll and you just get paid and your taxes get taken and all the things, mostly as a freelancer. And there are benefits, obviously, for being self-employed for taxes and various things because you can claim expenses back and that kind of thing. For the most part, you will write an invoice, and that's the downside of being a self-employed artist is you have to be the business. You have to be your own agent and your own bookkeeper and all those things. Obviously, if you have an agent, they would invoice for you. But yeah, I guess so. I don't know if it was a student film. And by the way, some of those films can be really great for a show, and I support people doing them. But say you're getting, I don't know, I'm making this up, £100 a day or £200 a day. You just say 5 days on these days for acting services, and you send it, and they will pay you.
How do I do it with taxation as a German citizen? We had this Brexit stuff, so I don't know. Do I have to pay taxes in the UK then, or
no.
No, it would be in Germany. You were able to work in the UK, right?
Yeah, I was.
Because you have a German
That's what I've been told by
Yeah,
the
but
NTFS. I don't know.
You have a European
I-
passport. You have German passport. Yeah, then you can work there. It's fine.
yeah,
Ah.
it's actually if you have an agent, do you have an agent at the moment?
Not anymore. No,
Well,
I'm free.
agency should know all these guidelines where you're able to work for
Yeah,
how many days, because I think that
yeah,
in London without like working visa you can work up to blah 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 days. But yeah, we can
yeah,
talk about it separately if you want, or better to talk to
Yeah.
someone from
Yeah.
Um,
But that's, yeah, thank you for the information. That was
yeah, and
pretty
invoice
nice.
is
No,
not that it's not that scary. It's just like, you know, whatever
Yeah, I know.
just
I'm writing invoices. I'm writing invoices for my other jobs, never for acting. That
yeah.
was very confusing.
no,
Okay.
Like,
this is not unusual.
all right.
Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions? We don't have time anymore. But
No,
just in case.
okay.
Okay. Andrew, I feel like if anyone wants to say something, please do. Again, but I feel like it was very, very inspiring, kind of like very nice and I forgot English now. Not sensitive, but like kind of deep, inspiring. Thank you for sharing all the personal, beautiful stories. And I don't know, this meeting inspired me really much, and I'm very grateful that you agreed to meet us today on this
Thank you.
Sunday
Well,
morning.
thank you for having me. It's really lovely to meet you. I have no idea as a freelancer what I'm going to be doing next. I work predominantly in the theatre. I'm doing a lot of commercial casting at the moment, but I do some television, film not so much, but film some more in the future, I hope. But television, theatre, commercial is where I'm kind of living at the moment. And like I say, I don't always know what's next. But if any of you would like to keep in touch with me, I'm happy to I'll send my email to my casting
Absolutely.
email to Olga, and she can pass it on to you. So if you want to practice sending "Hi, I'm doing this. How are you?" emails to casting directors, you can practice with me. I don't mind. That's okay. And maybe I will reply, maybe I won't, so you know how it feels. But I'll try to. But I'm more than happy to keep in touch with you and know what you're doing. And if you want any, well, listen, if you need any advice, Olga is the person to ask because she knows as much as me, if not more. But I'm more than happy to.
We can send you this "Hi, I'm working" emails, and you could sort of rate them.
Exactly.
what
Oh,
I will file them. I will always file them.
oh.
Yeah, but no, absolutely. I'll send my email to Olga, and if you think of something after this conversation and you think, oh, I didn't ask that, please do ask. If I don't get back straight away, please excuse me. It's just because I'm doing stuff, but I will get back if you have a specific question off the back of this. That's not a problem.
Thank you very, very much. It's like
Thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Good luck, and make your luck as well. Find a way to make your luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care. Have a good day.
Welcome.
Have a great
Bye
day.
Thank
bye.
Have
you.
a
Bye
great
bye.
day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.